Hello, Mr. Fusion here, back for Dragon Ball Daima January, I guess is what we're gonna call this. Now, things got a little messed up over the past couple of months. Not messed up, but things got complicated. Since Dragon Ball Daima has been airing, I was initially trying to cover episodes as they came out alongside my regular upload schedule. Once Dragon Ball Dissection December came around, though, when I was already doing 5 videos over the course of the month, it was just impossible for me to keep up with Dragon Ball Daima. And I don't just mean in terms of making these videos, I mean that I stopped watching Dragon Ball Daima. I needed to focus exclusively on the stuff I was doing for Dragon Ball Dissection, Dragon Ball GT. So, it is my goal in the month of January to catch up on everything that I've missed, and to bring those videos to you. So I am trying to do a new Dragon Ball Daima upload every week for the month of January, and I'll be covering 2 episodes in each of them instead of 1 like I have been doing. It does put me in a bit of a bind, though. I've already said that I have some kind of self-consciousness doing these unscripted Dragon Ball reviews, not having the benefit of a script or the benefit of long amounts of thought and research. But going into these, where I am no longer caught up, not only do I not necessarily know everything there is to know, I know for a fact that I know less than all of you do. Because presumably you guys have been keeping up with the show and have actually seen it. So by default, obviously, all of you know more about this than I do. I am covering Daima episodes 8 and 9 today, and that means I have not seen past episode 9 as of recording this. So there's a pretty big chance I'm going to speculate on things that you guys already know the answer to. Maybe that will be fun for you. Maybe it'll be embarrassing for me. I don't know. I don't claim to know everything or anything. I'm just talking about my initial reactions to these episodes. But again, by the end of the month, hopefully we'll all be on the same footing again. Alright, it is kind of funny that I left off before episode 8 because I think episode 8 was the really big one people were looking forward to because of the fight where Goku finally encounters a Tamagami at the end of episode 7 and they start fighting in episode 8. So, it's not the new hotness anymore, but I was excited to get to see it. I don't really have much to say about the fight itself. It looked good. It was great. There wasn't really anything of sort of analytical substance to it. Again, it looked really good. There were only a couple of things that really caught my interest. Because I was just reviewing the end of Dragon Ball GT over the past couple of months, I did kind of like that when the second phase of the fight starts, after Goku has broken number 3's hammer, the hammer sort of falling down on one side is what signals them to start fighting. It's not something they planned ahead of time, but it is like one of those sort of environmental cues that shows like this like to do. But it very much reminds me of Su Shenlong and Goku's fight, where they signal the statue hitting the ground is when their fight starts. So my perspective influences how I see these things, and that was fresh in my mind, so that's what I'm thinking about. The only other thing I found interesting is that when number 3 gives up, Goku seems surprised by it, and I didn't really understand why. He even says, "You look like you could still keep fighting." It seems to be coming from this perspective of, Goku is a battle-hungry Saiyan and like this weird fight to the death mentality, but we know that Goku has his roots in tournament battles, where giving up is a common thing to do. Giran gives up to Goku in Goku's very first quarterfinal match. So, I don't know, that just seemed weird to me, but I did like the dynamic that the Ball Guardian seemed, relatively jovial, even as he's defending his thing. After the fight, I admit my interest picked up a bit more because I as soon as he pulled out the table, I'm like, oh, it's going to be a shell game. It's going to be a shell game, and yeah, it was a shell game, where the Ball Guardian puts the ball in one of the cups and spins them around, and Goku has to guess. And of course, it ends up being a rigged game because the Guardian is actually so quickly that nobody can see it, has tossed the ball out, so it's hovering over one of the demon's heads in the audience. But Goku is able to pick up on that. And I wasn't entirely sure how I felt about that scenario, because I do like to see that Goku is more than just a really strong idiot, so that he was able to really notice that, give him a different challenge was interesting enough, but it was also just kind of a passive thing. Like, either he's going to get it or he's not. Maybe somebody else could have noticed it. I don't know. Like, it wasn't a problem. It just wasn't terribly engaging either. It was fine. It was right on the fine line, which is fine. That's a fine line to be on, a fine line. Maybe if I keep saying fine line enough, it'll get my point across, whatever it happens to be. So the heroes have their first Dragon Ball, and while the fight may have been what people were looking forward to, I think it's the back half of the episode that actually has the really important stuff in it. I really am not trying to hammer this point home. Oh, hammer, like number 3 had a hammer. Okay, whatever. I'm not trying to belabor this point. I know I complained about it a lot in episode 1, the whole Majin Buu watching people watching Majin Buu. It is kind of funny to me that we come back in episode 8 and the villains are still watching their Majin Buu recap. That's all they want to do. They just want to watch Dragon Ball Z again. This time, though, there is actually a reason. Kind of, as in there is a reason for us, the audience, to be watching this, because it actually conveys information that we need to know and is done in an economical way. We don't spend 10 minutes to get to this point. But it's not for a reason, because it doesn't really seem to be any motivation for these characters to watch this footage again. And so this is why the sequence feels a little bit weird, but I'll get to that in a minute. The point is they're rewatching the fight with Majin Buu, and when Vegeta blows himself up to kill Buu, it turns out, because this is one of those really big fun retcons, is that Arinsu was there the whole time, and she scooped up a little blob of Buu. And it's really convenient, because it just so happens at the moment that the bad guys are watching this and realize that she did this, that happens to be the exact moment that in the present Arinsu is using that blob of Buu. That's why I say that it comes across as a little bit unmotivated and weird timing. It feels like maybe this should have come later, as in she does her stuff with the Buu blob. And then the bad guys are like, wait, how did she get that? And then they go back and play the tape, and that's where they get the information. It just seems really convenient that, they just happened to be skimming through their VHS library and find this information right at the moment something's happening with it. It's just funny to me. But yeah, Arinsu has enlisted the help of this elderly witch named Marba. Well, the subtitles render it as Marba, which is very valid. The name is literally Maba, with an elongated ah sound in the middle. It's very similar to Frieza's henchman Zarbon, which we render as Zarbon. The long vowel sound like that is often used to denote rhotic R's that the Japanese language doesn't have. If you've seen Dragon Ball Dissection, you probably know this already, but I'd like to cover my bases here, just in case there's anybody new or somebody who's forgotten that. Because I've seen it suggested, I think, by Herms, Ma-ba might be a play on Ma, which we've seen a lot in this series, Daima, Majin, Daimao, being magical or demonic, and Baba, like old crone, like Udanai Baba, the Muten Roshi's older sister. So that Maba might be like a demon crone. It could be. We don't, apparently we don't know, or at least didn't when this episode aired. Maybe people know more now. I don't know. I'm just doing the best I can. But here's where the really, really big retcon is. It was weird enough, or funny enough to me that, it turns out that Arinsu was there in the Majin Buu arc the whole time. It kind of reminds me of, both. It reminds me of two things. One is the, I had spy robots follow you through all your Dragon Ball adventures, Goku, says Dr. Gero. But also, there's the episode of Scrubs, where JD starts dating Elizabeth Banks' character, and like it makes a joke that she's been here the whole time, and they like incorporate her in a flashback into all these previous scenes, and that JD just never noticed her. So it's just stuff like that I thought was kind of funny. But the really big one is Arinsu going to Marba. "Oh, well, you're the one who made Majin Buu in the first place, aren't you?" And she's like, no, that was totally Bibidi. And Arinsu is like, no, he just asked you to make Majin Buu for him. He couldn't have done that. So yeah, that's a pretty big change there. And it definitely feels like it's done for plot convenience reasons, because we all know that Bibi D is dead and Bobby D is dead. So if we want to make another Majin Buu type character, which seems obvious they're trying to do, we need a person who can make a Buu. So let's just say that the person who made Buu, we actually never met that person. It's a totally different person, and it feels so. It feels kind of sloppy. It definitely makes us feel like a decades late sequel where they're just trying to make things fit together. Again, I'm not like busting its chops for it. Television shows do this all the time, but it is worth finding some amusement in it. It's also even more complicated because, and I think I talked about this when I was covering the Boo arc, but I talked about this in my video about retcons, where this has already been retconned once before. In 2014, in an issue of Saikyo Jump, Toriyama answered questions in a series of Q&As, I think. And this one was called the 12 Boo Mysteries. It's a pun. Where he said that, contrary to what was said in the story, Bibi D did not in fact create Majin Buu, but in fact Buu has existed since time immemorial. He's like a force of nature, which I always thought was kind of dumb and pointless, and it turns out it is completely pointless because it was overwritten for this, kind of. Obviously it's kind of half true because, it turns out that Bibi D did not create Majin Buu. We're sticking with that, but we're not sticking with the reason why. Like, to me, that just feels like more of a coincidence, because any kind of retconning of this would have taken Bibi D out of the equation. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a change. So I think this is less the interview being half kept to than it is just, well, yeah, obviously, that's going to happen to line up. And the funniest thing is it's not even going to be the last interview contradiction we're going to see today. But anyway, the point narratively is that Arinsu's trying to build her own Majin Buu. It reinforces the idea that she has contracted in some way Glorio to get the Dragon Balls for her, and he in turn is subcontracting that out to Goku. But just in case, she's also building this other guy who's going to help her with that task, just in case they fail. So, moving into episode 9, Thieves. This one, I'll be honest, I didn't care for all that much, for the most part, in the broad strokes. There are some details that I found really cute. Like, the premise is, if you can call it that, is that the gang stops for the night in a hotel because Pansy is the Bluma character and doesn't want to camp anymore and wants to be able to take a shower. So they agree that if they just disguise Goku, they can go in a hotel, they'll take precautions, they'll stick together, they'll stay in one room, keep the Dragon Ball safe, and of course that all goes to pot. I'll get to that in a minute when I get to my complaints, but there is just a gag about, Pansy coming out of the shower, and she has a cute wet hair look, and I like her sleep clothes, but she confronts Goku about like, well, what are you going to change into? And he doesn't have any change of clothes, which freaks her out. So she offers to give him some of her clothes. And while he objects to panties, he doesn't have a problem with anything else. And honestly, the outfit that he has, which matches her, like, it's really cute. It's so cute. They both look so cute as a match set. He has like this t-shirt with a bear on it, and he has these pink shorts. They look really great on him. It's a perfect look for him, and I love it. And I wish he'd stayed in it a bit longer, but by the next day, he's changed back into his regular clothes. But I did think it was cute. I also like briefly how Goku tries to stay up all night to stand guard and struggles to stay awake. He does, he does some fighting moves and he tries to force his eyes open. It's some good visual stuff. I think it could have been a little bit more, but again, get to that. Actually, I'll get to that right now. My issue with this segment of the episode is that it feels really stupid and pointless. And I'm not going to say that it's spinning its wheels because I'm saving that phrase for about 5 minutes from now. You probably know what I'm talking about already. But for right now, I'll just say that I would be fine with this, or at least a bit less negative on it, if... It's difficult because whenever I bring up the idea of characters doing stupid things, there's always going to be that argument as to whether or not the stupidity works reasonably for the story or if it just feels like a contrivance to get things to happen. And that's going to vary from person to person because, Goku is supposed to be dumb as a bag of bricks sometimes. So it's not completely outside of the realm of his character to do stupid things, and characters, even if they aren't stupid, can still make mistakes. But here is one of those examples where it just feels like a contrivance. Because, Ponzi's plan is to have Goku wear a bear hat into the hotel, which again is adorable, but that's to disguise the fact that he's Goku. And within 10 seconds, Goku takes the hat off because it's making him itchy. And it's like, I want to find that funny, but it is so stupid and so immediate. Like, I cannot fathom him making that mistake at this point. I just feel like it needed a slightly smarter reason behind it. It's not really funny enough on its own to justify how stupid it is, if you get me. Because there are other opportunities for that to happen. Because obviously the 1 second he takes the hat off, people immediately recognize him, and these two goons stage a trick to steal the Dragon Ball. They make a ruckus out in the lobby, which causes the group to run out and see what the problem is. Which of itself could be a fine justification for Goku not wearing the hat. He's taken a shower, he's changed clothes, he's holed up in his room with his friends. There's no reason for him to wear the bear hat. But you give him a reason to not think and to run out of the room, then there you go. Identity is revealed. But instead, they don't have it be that way. And that happens again, where it's like the Dragon Ball is stolen, Goku and Glorio get it back because Ponzi's put a tracking device on it, which, good foresight for her. But then it's just like, okay, we're going to go to sleep now. And Goku's like, hey, don't worry about it. I'll stand guard and make sure nobody gets it. And then they, just for a couple of seconds, do a couple of gags of Goku struggling to stay awake and ultimately sleeping through the night, where his friends find him the next morning. And that seems like a reasonable and funny way to get Goku to drop his guard. You can have the Dragon Ball stolen then, but instead nothing happens then. And I feel like they have this whole thing backwards, where it's like they didn't structure this in a way that makes a lot of sense. Where it's like the time where it should have been a liability, it's not, and the time where they should have been acting smarter, they do the stupidest thing imaginable, and it's like, why? It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. It'd be less frustrating if Goku stayed in his bear shirt and his pink shorts for the rest of the series. Then it would just be cute. And then there would be enough cuteness that maybe I could overlook how annoying this can be sometimes. Yeah, probably not, but, it's something. The other half of the episode, this is where we get to the spinning of wheels. It was arguable in the first half, but here it definitely is. And I can see some element of doing a running gag here, because I like the idea that Vegeta and the others end up in the same situations that the previous group has. Or at least I would if we could really justify them being here at all, and so far we really haven't. They just seem to be something to cut away to, but they don't really advance the plot. But I do like the little details of how what happens to them sort of shows off Hybis's character, if nothing else. Because basically what happens is a mirror of what happened in, episode 3 of the show, where on their first night, Goku and the gang, they go to a tavern, they get in a fight, they go to a hotel, they wake up the next morning and the people they got into a fight with have stolen their ship. And that's what happens with them, is that Hybis and the others, they go to a hotel for a night, Vegeta gets in a fight, they wake up the next morning, and those guys have stolen their ship. But rather than being like a dirty, seedy Mos Eisley tavern, they're in like this big neon club, which really does seem like a place that Hybis would take them. So I do like it from that perspective. Like I said, I think it's funny in concept that they'd be mirrors to each other, but it's just not really bringing anything new, and it doesn't seem like these characters have any reason to be here. And that gets exacerbated here, because so far Goku hasn't needed them, and he continues not to need them, because the king sends word that their ship has been stolen, and like, okay, we'll send Goku and the others to come get you. And Goku and the others come to get them, and they're like, well, we don't have any room in our ship. Well, see ya, bye-bye. And it's like, well, then why did you even come here? Why did you come visit them at all? Did you think you were sent here to go say hi? Like, what is this? What is happening? And it just reinforces the idea that Vegeta and the others don't even need to be here, that Goku's doing fine without them. And it's even more pointless because the bad guys or the antagonists return, Vegeta and Piccolo beat them up, and they get their ship back. And so now they're back on the road, but still not connected with Goku and the others who've already left them behind because they don't care about them at all. This whole thing was pointless. We do learn, however, and this could have been learned at any time, we could have skipped this entirely. Bluma notices that Hybis has a literal eye on his belt. A literal working eye, and this is clearly the third eye that is referred to in the first episode. What significance it's going to have, I still don't know. Maybe you do, but don't tell me. I mean, I can't look at the comments on these videos because I know you guys are just going to tell me what happens anyway, and it's frustrating. So once again, it's really only the end of the episode where anything of major importance happens. We go back to Arinsu and whatever her name is, Marba, there we go. And they are continuing with their mad science experiments and their crazy retcons because Marba has Saibai seeds, and I do want to point out Saibai man. Saibai is the Japanese word for cultivation man, which is why the Viz manga translated their name as cultivars. That was something that way back in 96, Funimation either thought was too difficult to pronounce, slightly too difficult to pronounce, or just didn't notice the details, and they renamed it to Saiba Men, which is not really a word at all. But despite the fact that official subtitles since Super have unfortunately been using dubbed terms even in the subbed version, they do correctly render Saibai here. I did look it up enough to know that apparently, at least according to Kanzenshu.com, that is something they've been moving toward in recent years. Apparently, Sparking Zero also uses Saibai Man and maybe other things too. I don't know, but hey, I'm happy to see it. It's a step in the right direction. We did it and nobody died. But apparently they made their Majin Buu juice, which is solidified into more of a Majin Buu stew or Majin Buu soil, and are going to plant the Saibai Man seed in it to basically use it as a base for this new Majin Buu character they're going to create, which they very much do, and they dub it Majin Buu. And again, I feel kind of silly even talking about it because I know you guys have been talking about it since let's see, this episode aired on December 6th. So you've been talking about this for a month, and so this is not even news. But here we are. The Majin Buu is here, and maybe he's done things in the following month that I don't know about. But here he is, woohoo! But like I said, retcon stuff. I almost forgot. I got to make sure I work this in. This one is not quite as overt as the one about Bibidi. But it is, you could call it an interesting new bit of lore that Marba also has Saibai seeds, but there has been some continuity issues with it in the past because Toriyama keeps giving interviews, apparently, and just making stuff up, or was making stuff up. Obviously, he's not now, as he has passed away. But I think this is also in 2014. There was a Science special Q&A where Toriyama says that while the Saiyan culture used Saibai men, they did not create them, that they were found on another planet. And that does directly contradict Daizenshu 7 from the 90s, which does explicitly say that they were created by Saiyan scientists. Scientists. Haha. Which apparently came from Toriyama's memo on Saya culture, probably the same one I used in my my GT video about the Sufurians. But I would have to check that to be sure, and I don't really feel like doing that right now. This is an unscripted video. So you can see that this does kind of add another wrinkle to it. It does seem to be in line with the idea from the Saiyan special Q&A that they are not native to planet Vegeta or to whatever planet the Saiyans happen to be at whatever point in the timeline they would be at any point, words. But I also doubt that the Saiyans got them from here unless they were making trips to the demon realm, which I hope that they weren't. But really, who knows? I mean, given the whole Bibbidi thing, they could get information out here that the Saiyans sold them to her, or that the Saiyans got them from her. It could go either way. They could have developed them independently. The exact same creatures. They happen to harvest. They both happen to harvest the same creature from the same planet independently of each other. Who really knows? There's just all kinds of crazy things happening in this show. At least in terms of the lore and continuity. In terms of the story, unfortunately, it does sometimes seem like not all that much is happening. It is still really charming. But I think I agree with a lot of my friends who say that you could just sort of cut episodes worth of content out of this and not feel like you're missing anything. And I think there is a contrast here with the, I've seen it brought up, the idea that the characters in the very first story arc of Dragon Ball often lost their vehicles, but it never really felt quite as redundant as it does here, where it just seems like we lose a vehicle and then we're screwed for a little while, and then we get another one, and then it just keeps on happening repeatedly. In the original story, it always felt both motivated and always unique. You know, like when they lose their capsule case before the desert, that means they have to go through the desert, and they have the whole camper mishap, which, sets up, the sneaking around and the impersonating people through transformations, this big whole set piece. And then when Yamcha gives them a car, it's because there's a tracker in it so he can follow them. And then when Goku destroys that car with the Kamehameha, it's not even an issue because Gyumo immediately gives him another one. And then when that car is destroyed, that forces Yamcha to team up with them. So it was always something different. It never bogged things down. It always built. It always led to something new and exciting and interesting. And here it's just like, well, they got their car stolen again. I guess we're just going to have to spend another episode finding another one. Or spend half an episode fighting to get the same one back, so we'll end up in the exact same scenario we were before we started. And I just need to move on from that. I wish they would move on from that. But yeah, so that's Dragon Ball Daima episodes 8 and 9. Thanks so much for watching. Please give me a subscribe. These episodes are coming out early for patrons, like all my videos do. I have several tiers of Patreon rewards, from naming the credits to early access to videos. I hope you will give it a gander at patreon.com/MrFusion if you are so inclined, and I will see you back at the same time next week for the next 2 episodes of Dragon Ball Daima, where you get to point and laugh at how little I know because I'm not caught up on the show yet. Have a good day. Bye-bye.